Hi, and welcome to the Pelican Players YouTube channel. The Pelican Players Radio Theater presents old-time radio, but we have a special treat for you tonight. Instead of an old-time radio show, we have a new-time radio show. National Storytellers Championship, written and directed by my good friends and our very own Pelican Players, James Williams and Kevin Steinke, tells the story of people from all over the country, from different walks of life, with strange and different stories to tell about their life. Tonight, we're presenting part one. Enjoy the show.
Welcome. Tonight, Pelican Players, your local community theater for the Sun City Center, Ruskin, Waimama, Riverview, Apollo Beach, and surrounding area, has the pleasure of entertaining you. Tonight's broadcast is a recording of our live performance of National Storyteller Championship in the Kings Point Veterans Theater on July 23rd of this year. It was the world premiere of this original work, written and directed by James Williams and Kevin Steinke. It will be broadcast in two parts. Part one tonight, and will conclude with part two 1 week from tonight, October 1st, at the same time. The cast and crew are made up of local residents. We will introduce them following tonight's performance. And now, part one of National Storyteller Championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's National Storytellers Championship. We are so proud to present these finalists from all over the country. And now, our first finalist, who came all the way from Rhode Island, Miss Violet Vanzant.
Thank you. Weddings are so much fun. I recently attended my second ex-husband's best friend's ex-husband's backyard wedding. But at least I think that's who it was. Well, upon arrival, I was handed a white rose and a sprig of lavender tied with a bright red ribbon by a groomsman who reminded me of a Scandinavian prince. Ooh. Maybe Swedish. He was one of those blonde-haired, blue-eyed characters from a hot and steamy Harlequin romance that I grew so fond of reading and rereading over the years. He looked deep into my eyes and he said, "The white rose, the lavender, and the bright red ribbon express the happy couple's love for each other." Then he offered me his strong arm, and I felt his power as we walked midway down the grassy aisle to the groom's side. I wanted the short stroll to last longer, so I clumsily dropped my little bouquet. But the next thing I knew, he reached out with his powerful hand and he rescued it before it even hit the ground. I gazed into his eyes as he pried my hand from his arm. Then I found myself saying, "Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me," as I made my way to the last available seat in the middle of the row. I guess I was fashionably late. To my dismay, I settled into a lonely, stained, white plastic folding chair. Now uncomfortably seated, I took in the fragrance of my little bouquet, hoping and praying it would bring back that scrumptious Scandinavian prince. I also had a fleeting thought. I wondered if the little bouquet was a Martha Stewart idea. Damn her! I can still smell the rose and lavender. Those scents normally provide calming effects. But for me, the mixture dredged up old memories of my third and my fifth marriages, and maybe my first one too. They were all pretty gruesome. Well, I tried to remove the thorns, but you know, weed and wine can only do so much. So the pre-wedding music was lovely. I was listening to a duet of I Will Always Love You on the cello and the violin. Or was it Islands in the Stream on a flute and a bagpipe? Well, anyway, while taking in the beauty of a perfectly landscaped backyard, I mean outdoor kitchen, Viking appliances, high-end quartz countertops, authentic tiki hut bar, premium booze and a beefy bartender, swimming pool with a hot tub to boot. I felt myself becoming jinxed with jealousy and green with envy. And I knew that was an inappropriate feeling because this was a special day. Soon the happy couple would walk down that grassy green aisle, take their vows, and spend the rest of their lives together. Or maybe a few days or months, who knows. But now that I look back on what happened that day, maybe I caused it. Maybe it was I who created the disastrous disruption that would embarrass even a little baby. Maybe there really is such a thing as bad karma. Maybe envy and jealousy triggered the explosion of gravity that sent that chair and my behind crashing to the earth. And I am certain my weight had nothing to do with it. The chairs were holding up people larger than I. I mean, it was a weak chair. I didn't do it. Of course, I let out a scalding scream as I met my destiny. I immediately became the center of attention. My back, my neck, my head landed in between the legs of a perfect stranger sitting behind me. I remember looking up and saying, "Oh, was it as good for you as it was for me?" Then, from out of nowhere, my best friend's uncle's boyfriend, George, not the Scandinavian prince, he appeared on my right and offered me his rescuing hand to pull me up off the ground and onto my feet. Oh, my aching body. Oh. And I actually remember people laughing at me. Can you believe people were laughing at me? Oh, I could have been seriously injured. Oh, maybe I was. Well, needless to say, I was embarrassed and rattled. I made my way to the standing room only section of the lawn, next to the authentic tiki bar. The beefy bartender presented me with a tray of rosewater and lavender martinis, each tied at the stem with a bright red ribbon. Then he said, "The happy couple chose this martini to express their love for each other." I felt like this couldn't all be happening all over again. Was the earth now going to cave in under my feet? Was that authentic tiki hut bar going to come crashing down on top of me? It felt like deja vu. I mean, really. Rosewater, lavender, a bright red ribbon, all over again. Damn you, Martha. Well, I know you are wondering if I took that martini. What would you do? The way I looked at it, I had three choices. Take the drink, take one for each hand, or take one for each hand and search for that scrumptious Scandinavian prince. I chose the hot, steamy one.
Thank you, Violet. Violet Vanzant. I would have taken a drink for each hand. I hope you did. Our next contestant comes all the way from the great Midwest, the state of Ohio, Oak Montgomery Mason, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, thank you. 1974 was a year that I will not forget. It was a year that went down in history unlike any other. Americans placed confidence in a man to lead the greatest nation of the world. That confidence had completely caved in by August 9th. Richard Milhouse Nixon was the first ever president of the United States of America to announce his resignation to the office of Commander-in-Chief. No other news story of the 1974 would top this one that year. I was 22 years old, living in a struggling mid-sized industrial town in southwest Ohio. Though I was nearly 500 miles away from Washington, D.C., this shocking political drama unfolded in newspapers and sold-out newsstands. News developments were constantly blaring from car radios in every small business across America. And if that wasn't enough, factual evidence was disclosed on our television sets, broadcast live on NBC, ABC, and CBS. The Watergate scandal landed on the front page headlines on June 17, 1972. From that day, I intently watched and listened to the revealing truth about President Nixon and his administration as Huntley and Brinkley shed light on the stories while reporting from their New York and Washington news desks every evening. This American tragedy was the talk of the town. All my friends and families had an array of feelings about it. I didn't let their opinions sway mine. I kept my thoughts to myself. I wanted to learn as much as I could about what happened, to form my own opinions about it. I probably didn't realize it then, but I was in my late formative years. I was a few years out of high school, where my interests were history, politics, and especially the lives and times of the American presidents. Growing up, I actually had a collection of plastic president statues. I got them from a local grocery store. I bought them with my own money, earned for working in my family's bakery. The set came with a styrofoam base with 4 pillows. Each statue stood valiantly on a pedestal, next to one another in order of their presidency. At one point, without looking, I could rattle off each president's first, middle, and last names along with the years of his presidency, in order, with 100% accuracy. That showed my true devotion. I was inspired by these political figures, unlike my little sister, who would sneak into my bedroom with her best friend and knock them all down like dominoes, leaving the mess for me to pick back up and reorganize. I didn't mind, though, because it helped me learn who they were and where they stood on the pedestal. As impressionable as I was back then, I knew in my heart and soul, as I put all the statues back in place one by one, these presidents had been sworn in under oath to protect America and honor the highest office in the land. 1974 opened my eyes to something that has stuck with me through my adult life. American presidents can fall from grace and power just like any other human being. I learned that pedestals are a vulnerable place to rise to and stand upon. They elevate a person to a higher level where their words, deeds, and actions are under constant magnification and scrutiny. From the onset, I liked President Nixon. He was first elected in 1968. I cast my very first vote for him, like so many other baby boomers did, in 1972, where he won a second term by a landslide. Although Nixon proved himself during his first term, I expect that he would do equally as well in his second term. I studied and read about his campaign platform and promises. They appear to be logical solutions for America and Americans. He wanted to restore law and order in our nation's cities and provide new leadership in the Vietnam War. 1974 presented character growth in my life. I feel that it provided learning opportunities to help me become a more discerning person by encouraging me to steer clear of the behaviors exhibited by Nixon and his administration. I could have easily been disillusioned with America and because of Watergate's twists and turns and plethora of secrets, but I didn't let myself become vulnerable to it. I chose to see America from what it is and from what it will always be in my eyes. America stands for democracy, freedom, and truth. These principles that govern me and help me navigate my life. I believe as Americans we should all strive to be trusted, truthful, and trustworthy. I believe as Americans we should choose our friends wisely. I believe we should stand up to fears, doubts, and insecurities. And most of all, I never ever intend to set foot upon a pedestal. That is why I would never ever run or seek public office. I am forever grateful for 1974. God bless the United States of America!
Oak Montgomery Mason, ladies and gentlemen. Now our next contestant is from Cocoa Beach. She was on this very stage last year in last year's National Storytellers Championship. Welcome, Daisy Beachcomber.
I moved to Florida almost 40 years ago. I knew about its flourishing job market, the low cost of living, no state income tax, and most of all, sunshine. So, after mulling it over a few months and dredging up the courage to pull up stakes, I crammed as much stuff as I could into my avocado green Ford Pinto and set out for the Sunshine State. I was almost 24, full of life and courageous, or at least I thought I was. I think my eyes kept spurting rain from the moment I left my parents' Pennsylvania gravel driveway until I reached the Florida-Georgia state line. I went through several tissues and fast food napkins on that 800-mile stretch, but there was something about that "Welcome to the Sunshine State" sign that gave me a new sense of peace, hope, and purpose. The palm trees and the sun were so welcoming and amazing. I had driven my little green Pinto smack dab into paradise without being rear-ended. I truly felt the sadness of leaving family and friends ease a little bit. My tears turned into newly found freedom and quiet confidence. Of course, I didn't know a soul. I knew I needed to be brave and strong. I wasn't sure where I would live or how I would make ends meet. I was lucky enough to have a small bank account with $7,321.32 in it to keep me going for a while, thanks to my deceased grandparents on my dad's side. My mom and dad said they were a phone call away and would be my lifelines if I needed them. Deep down, I so hoped I could make things work out on my own, but I called them collect almost every night to give them an update of my new adventure. We didn't talk long. I knew I was talking on their dime. It really helped hearing their familiar voices. Now that I think about it, maybe subconsciously, it was my grandmother who drew me into making this journey. She always wanted to live in Florida. She talked about moving away from the long, cold Pennsylvania winters. She and my grandfather were the first to introduce me to Florida and their favorite beaches all along the Atlantic coast from Fernandina down to Cocoa. I think we stopped at all of them in between, but my grandma's favorite was Cocoa. They never went beyond that point. I think she liked the excitement of Canaveral Pier, Ramones, the toast of the coast, and watching space launches. They would vacation there for a week every year. I was lucky enough to make the trip with them a few times. I felt drawn to those memories of beaches, sunsets, and fun. Thinking about it now just puts a smile on my face. I arrived on a Saturday afternoon. I had previously made reservations for the first week at a Howard Johnson's right on Cocoa Beach. On Sunday, I bought a newspaper. I began looking through the rental and help wanted ads. I began circling a few things. I went down to the front desk with it in hand to see if anyone could give me some advice on what I had circled. The lady working there, Madeline, was a great help. I listened to her thoughts and put a star by a couple of apartment listings that she suggested. I called to set up appointments and went to look at some of the places. Madeline's advice was invaluable. It led me to a really nice neighborhood. She also told me that Howard Johnson's was always hiring, both in the hotel and the restaurant. She handed me an application and told me to fill it out so she could give it to her boss, encouraging me just like my grandma would do. I didn't let any grass grow under my feet. I hit the ground running. By Wednesday of that week, I had located my first one-bedroom apartment. I was excited to move in and make it mine. After an informal interview with Madeline's boss, she offered me a job in the restaurant as a waitress. I thought it would be in my best interest to take it so I could start earning money for rent and expenses. I started working the breakfast-lunch shift. It was a good job, but even though I never really dreamed of being a waitress, it provided a good life for me. On my days off, I packed my little green Pinto and drove to the beach. I met up with newly made friends, and we would have a good time in the sun. It felt like vacations that I had taken with my grandparents. I thought of them often. I had created the perfect life near the beach. That's where I met John, my husband of 33 years. John was also my grandfather's name. It took a lot of courage to pull up stakes and leave Pennsylvania, but I think my grandma was reaching out and helping me every step of the way. I think I was a very lucky granddaughter. My grandma gave her dream away. She gave it to me, and for that I will always be grateful for her and the Florida sunshine.
Daisy Beachcomber, everyone.
The Pelican Players Radio Theater will conclude tonight's show in a moment. But first, Pelican Players is your community theater celebrating over 40 years of providing live entertainment. In 2020, we arranged with WSCQ Sun Radio to provide recordings of our Readers Theater performances to be broadcast and streamed from their station and website on the last Friday each month. Pelican Players consists of all volunteer local talent on stage and behind the scenes. Our actors perform in our main stage productions, murder mystery theater, cabaret singers, readers theater, comedy theater, twig theater, and radio theater productions. Pelican Players is a 501c3 nonprofit with proceeds from our performances going to scholarships for Hillsborough County students in the arts. To date, we have donated over $600,000 to this endeavor. We always welcome new members who have an interest in performing or helping behind the scenes. Even though headquartered in Kings Point, you do not have to live in Kings Point to become a member or attend performances. For more information, please visit our website, www.pelicanplayersscc.org. And now, Pelican Players Radio Theater continues with tonight's performance.
Now, our next contestant comes all the way from upstate New York, Lily Chrysanthemum.
Hi. After watching America's Got Talent on TV the other night, I made my way to the bathroom to get ready for bed. Well, I brushed my teeth, I washed my face, sprayed a few sprays of toner, and began rubbing in some brand new night cream. Well, the night seemed pretty straightforward, like many others. After the bathroom rituals, I traipsed off to the kitchen to get a glass of water to put on my nightstand. Then I went to bed. I propped myself up on the pillows and I read a couple of pages of the People magazine that my neighbor gave me to wind down a little bit. I barely remember turning out the light and settling in for the night. My head hit the pillow and I fell asleep. Soon after, I found myself in an office. I was sharing space with 3 guys I'd never seen before. We each had our own desk. The walls of the office seemed really flimsy. Well, I spoke to one of the guys. I said, "Who are you?" He hesitated and he said his name was Simon. He didn't say anything else after that. He turned on his computer and started typing. The other 2 guys didn't say a peep, but I sensed they didn't like me. They both left the office and they came back at the same time, and I sensed they were talking about me behind my back. Well, I pretended to use the computer, even though I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It was so quiet in that office. Nobody was talking, and there was no music. All I could hear was the sound of many fingers typing on the computer keys. It was all very depressing and very weird. Well, I was never so happy to leave my desk when quitting time came. I got up out of my chair and turned to get my coat. They were piled in a heap on the floor. There had to be at least 25 winter coats all piled up there when I couldn't find my coat. Then I remembered I left it in the car. Knowing that my coat was in the car, it was time to get out of there. Well, the way out was not your normal tinted glass door. It was a ladder. Better yet, it was a circus ladder. You know, one of those ladders that kind of swing and bounce as you climb. Well, I was a little frantic, but I tried to remain calm. I just started climbing because I needed to leave that office behind me. And then it started to rain. But the springy ladder had this tarp system over it, and when you climbed, it moved with you. It was a brilliant design. Well, I kept climbing, and then I stopped for a moment to look down because I sensed somebody was following me. Well, I noticed that I was wearing my winter coat and pink ballerina slippers. How weird. Well, I continued climbing, and each step got easier. I wondered if I would ever reach my car. After about 45 more steps up the ladder, I noticed a platform with 2 young girls on it. The platform seemed very flimsy and unsafe. Well, I somehow stretched out the ladder and myself to get as close as I could to the platform, but I wanted something to grip onto in order to release the ladder. I didn't want to damage my pink ballerina slippers. Well, I asked the 2 girls to help, but they ignored me. I could tell they didn't want to help me. Well, I jumped off the ladder and I landed on the platform perfectly. It was a beautiful ballerina move. Well, one of the young girls said, "You shouldn't have asked us for help." Well, that was snotty. I ignored her, but I wanted to smack her. I woke up. It was a dream. I thought about it, and I went back to sleep. Well, the next morning, the first thing I wanted to do was record my dream. I tried to remember as much as I could because it was so peculiar. And then I thought I would try and find some deeper meaning in it. So I got out my computer and I looked up the dream meaning of office first. It seems that it means frustration. Well, I was frustrated. Yes, offices are very frustrating. But then I looked up coat. Well, the Dream Dictionary stated that it reflects how you want others to perceive you. That was a stretch. People may find wearing a winter coat while climbing a ladder a little odd. Maybe people perceive me as hot. Yes, that's it. I'm so hot. Well, then I looked up ladder, and it said it meant upcoming success. Yes, maybe I'm going to win the Pelican Players Trophy tonight. Then I looked up ballerina slippers. Well, it seems it means fleeting thoughts of having an affair with a married man. I chuckled to myself and I stopped right there. You know, I don't think I'm going to try and figure out my dreams anymore. I think I'll do this instead. I'm not going to watch America's Got Talent anymore. I'm throwing away that brand new face cream. I'm recycling that People magazine, and I'm going to stay away from offices, winter coats, ladders, and flimsy platforms. But I am going to order a pair of pink ballerina slippers on Amazon.com. An affair just might be fun.
Who am I? Where am I? Lily Chrysanthemum, everyone. Our next contestant is from Georgia. Her name is Ryalis Thibodeaux, and she's going to take us on another one of her adventures.
Thank you all. I had a sweet tooth craving the other day, so I started Googling recipes with chocolate, coconut, and pecans. I had all three fixings on hand and knew exactly that they would satisfy my taste buds. After looking through several recipes and watching some YouTube videos, I decided I'd just make my own recipe, plus I was going to take it another step further. I wanted to video myself like so many people do these days. I thought to myself, if all you all out there can make videos, well, I can too. I put on my bright yellow blouse and the colorful slacks and my flip-flops. I figured nobody's going to see my feet. I had this apron in my kitchen drawer that I never wore, so I got that out and I ironed it. I touched up my makeup and did my hair before I went back into the kitchen. I looked ravishing. I was ready to video. I wrote my recipe on a cue card first, along with a few words to say. I prepped all the fixings for my recipe and put everything into little measuring cups. I set out all the things I'd need, like a bowl and a mixer, and utensils and greased baking pan. After all, this was my big moment, and it required big actions. I wanted it to be successful. I opened the blinds and turned the light on for extra lighting. I was ready to record. Now, I put my computer on a stack of books on the kitchen counter. I knew the higher I put those books, the younger I'd look. So I just kept adding books. I practiced my opening lines, took a deep breath, and swiped and clicked the video button. I looked at the built-in camera and I said, "Welcome to the first episode of Cooking with Ryalis." Oh, no, I mean Baking with Ryalis. Thank you all for joining me today. Well, I reckon I'm just going to give you a big old thrill today. I have a brand new recipe to show you all, and it's called chocolate, coconut, pecan bars. Now, I hope you're all ready. Now, let's just get started. First, get y'all's favorite large mixing bowl, electric mixer, and all the fixings. I've had this mixer for years, y'all, but it still works. Add 2 sticks of soft butter to the bowl along with 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 eggs, a teaspoon of vanilla, and my secret ingredient, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you all want to use white sugar, it makes no never mind. Just make sure the butter is nice and soft. Now, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be turning on the mixer. Mix these fixings until creamy, about 2 minutes on high speed. Lord have mercy, this mixer is so loud. Sorry, y'all, this will just take a couple of minutes. Now, while this is a mixing, I'll go over the rest of the recipes. You all need 1.5 cups of all-purpose baking flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 cup of coconut, a 1/2 cup of pecans, and 3/4 cup of buttersweet dark chocolate. Oh, look how fluffy our batter is getting. Now this looks just right. Oh, turn that off. Now it's time to sift together dry fixings. I have this blue bowl over here for that. I'm adding the flour, the baking soda, and the mixing bowl, and the powder and the salt. Why am I still talking like this? Sorry, y'all. Now, sift these fixings into the bowl with a fine mesh strainer, just like this. Now gradually add these fixings into the butter mixture. Now, I'm warning you, I'm turning on the mixer, y'all. Add about 1/2 of the flour mixture. Oh, Lord have mercy, I have flour all flying all over the place. Oh, I'm so sorry. Now, just pardon me. Maybe it would be better if I used my mama's wooden spoon for this. It would be so much better. Oh, here it is. Yes, let's use mama's wooden spoon. I'm putting in the rest of the flour mixture. Mama's wooden spoon won't spread the flour all over the place like that mixer just did. This is much, much better. Now just look at this delicious batter. Why am I still talking like this? I'm just so sorry. Now, all you all need to do is mix by hand for a couple of minutes, then add the coconut, the chopped pecans, and the dark chocolate chips. Stir everything around really good. Get it all mixed together. Now these fixings are ready for the greased pan right over here. Spread it around evenly just like this, okay? Now it's ready to go into a 350-degree oven. Oh, I forgot to turn on the oven. Son of a peach. Anyway, you all just throw it in the oven and set the timer for 40 minutes. So that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, remember, if you all have a craving something filling, just tune in to my show, Baking with Ryalis. I'd love to help y'all satisfy y'all's cravings. Oh, good Lord, I am plumb tuckered out. Now, I've got to stop this camera. Now, thank you all kindly. Well, I swiped and clicked the computer to stop recording. The pile of books started toppling onto the counter and crashing on the floor with all the soiled bowls, and I caught the computer with one hand and my bowl with the other hand. I just made a big old mess all over the place, you all. Now, I suddenly forgot I even had a craving for chocolate, coconut, and pecans. Well, maybe I'll try to reshoot YouTube maybe tomorrow. It was a lot of fun. I'm not giving up yet.
Thank you, Ryalis, for taking us on that adventure. We're going to stay down south now, and from Missouri, the Show Me State, we now have Miss, what is your first name again? Rose Amandine.
I feel like 6 weeks of my life from last year, they're worthy of a story. See, I didn't know what I had gotten myself into. I didn't know if I would be able to do what I had set out to do or not. I mean, I wondered if I would be able to maintain an 85% average score to be offered a job at the end of this training program that I signed up for to change my life. I really, really wanted those free flight benefits. I wanted to fly around the world. I just didn't know if my brain could take in all the information. It was on overload. So many codes, FAA procedures, the whole airline industry just blew my mind. I mean, did you really want to be based in New York and have to commute from St. Louis? Okay, I was 650 miles away from home at an airline training center in Texas. I was in my 4th week of this training. I had 2 more weeks to go before it would be over. And 7 people who started training with me had already been sent home. There were only 8 of us left. And we were all on edge. We'd look at each other and just say, "Who's going next?" A lot of the airline training now is memorizing and reciting scripts. Now, the 5th week focused on in-flight announcements and emergency evacuation procedures. And I was shaking in my shoes about that next test. It was going to cover chapters and chapters of information that I needed to be able to recite from memory. It was a verbal test, but with actions. I would be graded while instructors watched while I was doing on board an elaborate plane mock-up, and all eyes would be on me as I play flight attendant. I just prayed I would stay cool, calm, collected enough, and get through the test. Well, when test day came, I felt pretty good. There were some easy scripts and actions like, "Welcome on board Sky Airlines flight number 357 with nonstop service from Dallas, Texas to Seattle, Washington. To ensure on-time departure, please place your belongings in the overhead bin or underneath the seat in front of you. Take your seats and buckle up as soon as you can. Our flight will be departing from the gate in 10 minutes. Now then, after making that announcement, the procedure stated that I needed to, 1, verify all the carry-on baggage was stowed away properly. I needed to make sure everyone had a seat belt around their waist, plus close all the overhead bins. Well, I felt pretty confident with that one, and I did well on it. I aced it. It was the emergency evacuation script and those actions that made me fall apart. They gave me an adrenaline rush. I mean, the secret was to keep calm, go slow, but if the captain runs into trouble with the aircraft, the procedure states that I will see a red light flashing on my in-flight panel, and I'll receive a call from the captain with serious news. If the captain says, "Brace, brace, brace," over the interphone, this means we're going to try to land the airplane, but it could be a rough landing. So I'll hang up the phone and kick into action. I'll advise the rest of the flight attendants on the interphone first, and then our command to the passengers is, "Grab your ankles, heads down, stay down. Grab your ankles, head down, stay down." Now this breaks me into a sweat, but it gets even better. If the captain is able to land the plane and make it stop, the next command from the captain will be, "Stand by, stand by, stand by," over the interphone. Well, when I hear this, I'm supposed to unfasten my seatbelt while saying as loudly as I can, "Stay in your seats with your seatbelts fastened. Stay in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." I am to repeat this while I assess the entry and service doors to make sure that they are not hot. I am to use the backs of my hands to ensure there's no fire. I check both doors twice before I advise the captain on the interphone, and if there was no indication of a fire, his next command is, "Evacuate! Evacuate! Evacuate!" That's my cue to open the doors, pull the levers that deploy those little slides, and start helping passengers off the airplane. After the doors are opened, my response to the passengers is, "Cross your arms and jump. Cross your arms and jump. Cross your arms and jump." I keep saying this until all the passengers are off the airplane, and when I think it's time for me to jump, I'm supposed to run through the aircraft, check every row, to verify that everyone is off the airplane. Well, I wondered if I had bitten off more than I could chew. I had invested 4 weeks of my life in airline training just to be a flight attendant. Do you think I made it? Let me share a little secret. I wasn't about to evacuate. I decided to flap my arms and leap. Flap my arms and leap. Flap my arms and leap. I earned my wings. I fly free now. You can marry me and fly free too. That's my story. Have a nice day, and thank you for flying Sky Airlines.
Don't you just love airline stories?
This concludes part 1 of National Storyteller Championship. Tune in next week at this same time for the conclusion and find out who becomes the National Storyteller Champion. Tonight's cast includes Paul Ansel as the announcer, Donna Fiore as Violet Vanzant, Jimmy Sapia as Oak Montgomery Mason, Julie Ramsey as Daisy Beachcomber, Sid Chero as Lily Chrysanthemum, Shirley Walker as Ryalis Thibodeaux, and Catherine Shea as Rose Amandine. Written and directed by Kevin Steinke and James Williams. Our sound and recording team includes Keith and Carlin Postal, Bob D'Almeida, and Sylvia Lazaro. Please be safe, stay well, and thanks for listening. Good night.